All right, thanks again for joining us on Thursday night. I'm James Black. I'm joined by my co-host
Barrington Miller.
and we don't have just one, we have two guests this week, and we're going to talk about the fabulous world of mining right after the beat.
Do you know my name?
Well, once again, we're back. It's Aftermarket. I believe this is episode 8, Barrington?
Yes, we are on episode 8.
Wow, almost at 10. And we actually made it this many episodes without talking about one of the most important businesses for us at the Canadian Securities Exchange, the mining industry. And we have two people who are going to help guide us through, and our listeners and viewers through, what it is that Canadian mining is all about. So we have first Anna Serin. Anna is our colleague from Vancouver, British Columbia. Hello, Anna. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Anna.
I've only had to beg 7 times to finally be invited in.
That's right. And then someone who didn't know what aftermarket was until about 5 minutes ago, Mr. James Rogers from Longford Exploration. Hello, James.
Thanks for having me on the inaugural mining episode. CLC's aftermarket.
Well,
it's great.
Hey, and more importantly, James is also CEO of one of our issuers, Clarity Gold.
That's
Clarity?
correct.
Did I say Longford?
Well, Longford Exploration is your mining company, right, James?
Yes, that's correct. So yeah, switch hats. Longford Exploration's like our services company, and we proudly have an issuer on the CSE, Clarity Gold.
There you go.
Did Anil talk to you about? Did you guys do a newly listed?
We haven't done a newly listed yet, I don't think.
It's coming.
But we're still pretty newly listed, so we should.
No, they
probably
did. They did. 100%.
Okay.
I'll link it above. In case you actually just want to jump out of this right now and just watch James and don't care about the rest of us.
Actually, we did.
Yeah.
COVID times, all these meetings blur
COVID
together.
times.
It's okay. James Rogers, I almost called you James Black. It's that kind of week.
J1 and J2, B1 and
Whatever. Okay, so let's get on track. The main reason we wanted to chat today, Anna has done a lot of work in the mining side of our business, both to, obviously attract business, but to educate people about mining. And one of the major initiatives we have coming up, it's called Mining Over Canada. It implicates all of us, implicates you, the viewer, because you're going to come along the journey with us. Maybe, Anna, you can just describe what it is that Mining Over Canada is and what it strives to accomplish here as we roll it out over the next few weeks.
Well, I'll start off by saying where this idea came from. And the idea was born out of our colleague, Mark Francis in Central Canada, who had envisioned putting our CEO, Richard, and himself in an RV and traveling across the country, hitting all of our mining issuers. So unfortunately, due to the pandemic and global crisis, we're going to do this virtually. So Mining Over Canada is a play on something called Fly Over Canada. It was built in Vancouver around the Olympics, and it is a 4D IMAX experience where you literally fly over the country. So we want to provide that kind of cool visualization for people that are joining us on this ride, and take a look at the mining camps that are active across the country. What is mining in Quebec versus mining in the Yukon versus mining in Central Canada? So it's a 6-week initiative. We've broken the country into 5 regions. We could probably do a year-long initiative, to be honest, because there's just so much of this story to tell. We've broken it down to 5 regions. We're doing a 6-week initiative. People can join us. They can visually, see lots of what's going on across the country. We're going to bring in educators, historians, associations, geologists. We're going to have some fun with this and try and, retell the mining story.
Do you know what I like about this is the timing. We've sort of had a knack for it, and I'm knocking on wood. Mining is hot right now. Mining is so hot. If you watch Zoolander or a fan of Zoolander, it's just so hot right now. And Anna, your timing couldn't be more exacting. So we appreciate it, and we appreciate you sharing not only your wisdom and insights, but also a little bit of family that's going to be coming along for this ride.
There is some family stories. And, the other thing I just want to say is, we've had kind of this amazing few years, and a lot of that was to do with the cannabis space. but we are in existence because of the mining sector, and almost half of our issuers are in the mining sector. Our 50th, our 100th company was mining. So the CSE owes big thanks to the mining sector as well.
Like James Rogers, who is
Hey.
who is obviously one of our peers and is deep in this industry. James, tell us a little bit about what you do as a mining executive and what exactly this market right now, how you can kind of convey it to other people just kind of tuning into mining for the first time. What does it mean to be in this market today as a mining executive?
Sure. So, I mean, I'm a millennial. I'm a young guy. I'm only 31 years old, and I've been in the mining industry about 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never seen a good mining market. And eight months ago, kind of at the beginning of pandemic, global lockdown, I'm fleeing out to the bush to go and work in a cabin for 3 months until the world comes back to its senses. I was wishing and dreaming of a good, strong mining market, and all of a sudden it arrived, and it's here. And we were at the brink of laying off all of our staff. Everything was crumbling. Our clients were running out of money. They couldn't raise more to do their work. Everything was kind of in disrepair. And then 2 months ago, things started picking up. And this is, the first real bull market that I've got experience in, from both the executive level with Clarity Gold, being able to execute and finance its strategy, but then also our service company being able to do work for a number of other of your issuers and other issuers as well. So
I want to jump in, J2. Let's go back 11 years or 13 years.
Yeah.
How'd you get in? Why did you get in?
Reluctantly at first, actually. My dad was a geologist, so we grew up. I grew up with a backpack on and picking up rock samples up anywhere that he could drag me up a hill. So I think the first samples I would have taken, I would have been like an 8-year-old kid in the Kootenays, and I didn't want to do anything like. Well, at that time, I wanted to be everything like my father, and then I became a rebellious teenager and didn't want to do anything like my father. So I did everything I could to not go into mining until it eventually sucked me in. And I found myself on the end of a chainsaw cutting geophysical survey lines on the coast of British Columbia, and have never looked back since. And that brought me through school all the way up to where we are now. So
I think I was working at Dairy Queen or a nightclub at that point in my life.
I had rocks in my backpack, but just being an idiot. I wasn't doing anything with it.
That was your friends just weighing your backpack down.
Yeah, that was me trying to appear heavier for the scouts when it came to hockey. It's like, you're 250 pounds and you are 11 years old. Yes. Yes, I am.
Yeah.
James, you must be the youngest guy on every site, huh?
I had been for a long time. It's funny how I started actually running projects and getting into it. It was 2008, 9, and in there, and I happened to have a good experience in running projects, and the geologist on the job site we were on kind of left for another opportunity, and the whole board of directors of the company just looked at me and said, well, now it's your job to run it. So I'm, at that time, was like a young, like basically a 20-year-old running exploration programs successfully with like a $500,000 budget at the time, which wasn't huge money, but it was quite a bit for the responsibility. So I luckily was able to hold on to most of my hair, despite the gallons of coffee I needed to even cope with.
God, I hope coffee doesn't give you hair loss. Anna, you're not or James isn't the only person here with a family connection to mining. Maybe can you just describe what it is that you came from and how it actually is a perfect counterpoint to what James's history was?
Well, I think, I don't know if there's many people in the capital markets in Vancouver I'm not related to. So it's easier to say that. I love it when I go to meetings with Richard, our fearless leader, and he goes, Anna's from the streets. And I'm like, Richard, you can't say that. He goes, Pender and how? I'm like, Richard, this is not necessarily a selling feature. So my family's been in mining for a long time. Actually, my great uncle, Bern Brynelson, was inducted into the Mining Hall of Fame, I believe, in 1991. he found or discovered Brenda mines in British Columbia. So he did that for his whole life. My dad actually got into commercial real estate. And at one point, you know, kind of the same as you, James, he just couldn't help himself but follow my great uncle's path, and ended up going, you know, into the mining sector, but more on the capital market side, and did that for, I think, 30, 40 glorious years, maybe not always glorious. Some good tenures, some not so good tenures. So yeah, so mining has been in my family. It's been a discussion at our dinner table my whole life. I love it. I'm a big fan of the mining space.
So you're both very passionate about it. Why? Where does that passion come from? It's obviously there's some DNA, but is there what in today's environment, other than the fact you can maybe now look at it as a lucrative sector, is there any other, you know, was it chopping wood? Is that what got you going, James, or was it something else?
I think exploration's kind of been that driver for me. Growing up, yeah, looking for these shiny rocks and spending summers in a tent. This, you know, the end of map sheets and kind of going beyond what people could fathom for, you know, going for a hike. It's not walking on a trail. It's going to accomplish an objective to try and understand something and bring some economic value to it. The driver to me is always exploration and discovery, and never really has been about lucrative times, because I don't know lucrative times. All I've known is people haven't had a lot of money to pay service companies for a long time. So
You're like the Zen miner. It's like the process and the journey, not the destination.
totally.
Walk the earth like Cain.
Kung Fu.
I have a question for both of you. You know, I don't have a mining background or anything like that. My connection to mining is pretty much the Canadian Securities Exchange. So the image that I have is is an older demographic that was involved in it. A lot of gray hairs or a lot of no hairs. Now, well,
Buck in the Trandana.
yeah, both of you actually represent something different, and that's age. How do you attract a younger audience into this sector, which typically is perceived as an older sector?
Should I answer first, James?
Why don't you go first? Yeah.
James might actually have some real answers to this question. I've probably got a lot of hot air, but listen, I think what people don't realize, and this is why we're doing this initiative, and we're going to talk about stuff like how it relates, is that if it's not grown, it's mined. And so we survive on this industry more than I think most people actually realize, like literally survive off of it other than our food. And it's fun, it's cool, it's, you know, I don't think that people realize the environmental standards and the safety standards that we have in Canada and a lot of other countries have implemented. So it's not quite, I think, the image that people think it is. And you know, when I started working with my dad. I was a broker for 10 years, and then I started working with my dad. And by the time I left the brokerage community, I was kind of a little disenchanted by it. And, you know, kind of the big fund managers and bank managers and or fund companies. And I went to go work for my dad in this little exploration company. And I said, oh my God, this is amazing. I love this. I mean, you just, if you have to spend money, you have to go get someone to write a check. And if you want to spend money, then you gotta put a hole in the ground. And it was just so cool. And it was probably in the depths of the worst market that we've had in about 40 years. And Dad just said, you know what, Anna, if you love this now, just wait. It gets so much better.
And you're like, how? How could it?
Amazing.
I mean, yeah, that was going to be my question to everyone was, how do you psychologically get up for a business that is by design just bleeds money? Like, until you find something, you're not even selling that end product. You're not.
It's crazy, because you're not making a product, really, right? You're finding something that's already been made and extracting it. It's the only real industry that's like that. And well, it's resources, natural resources by definition, right? It's using an approach to get it and then pull it out, as opposed to making a fundamentally sound business from the beginning. It's backwards.
Yeah,
It's
the
the
word
largest game
speculation.
of hide and go seek ever.
I love that. A fundamentally sound business.
Well, it's
Well,
not from the expiration standpoint. I mean, you are throwing money at expiration, and basically, you're counting on a geologist or some science to point the drill, to point everything towards discovery, and then you build your economic model based on what you find. You're not building a model of sales from the beginning. It's
yeah,
backwards from your traditional business.
but I'll say this about the industry and about speculative investment, which is completely necessary for you guys running your operations. Most people are not concerned about the technical aspects. They're looking at macro aspects and then probably looking at value of speculation through juniors, because they're going, how many ways can you get exposure to gold, for instance? You can buy physical asset, it's got storage issues. You can buy futures and other options, but that's it requires a bit of a learning curve. I think you can attest to that, Barrington. You were a trader for many years.
Yeah, and
um,
I hated trading gold. And if you're
mhm.
listening to past episodes, especially with Trader TV, tradertv.live,
Yeah,
you will know why.
link above.
Link
The
above.
Yeah, and then buying stocks, right? So obviously the first first stocks to get valued out in any market are the big ones, right? The blue chips, because they're in everyone's portfolio. That's what the indices track. It's hard to extract a lot of value out of that, especially if you're looking at quick and easy returns. So therein comes people like you, James, who are digging for these rocks. They're looking for these things. And I guess my question is, how do you stand out from the herd? Because there's a few hundred of yous in Canada looking for these precious metals. And you know, tell us what the defining traits are, because we're going to talk about this in Mining Over Canada. But from your perspective, how do you break through the noise?
Yeah, I think taking a strategy is the most important part as an explorer. So if you're just aimlessly running around looking at projects, looking at everything, you kind of need to have that focus. So what
Right.
we bring, to speak for Clarity, for example, what we bring is my team's experience on actually finding and pulling projects together, making things happen in terms of executing good science in the field, bringing back good data, and then presenting it in a meaningful manner. So having done that for just over a decade, bringing all that experience in with a full, robust team behind it is where you can start to differentiate yourself. Deposits are getting harder to find. Economic deposits are even further harder to find. Things that might control that could be metallurgy. So we have to look at technological advances within our industry that may make something that used to not be economic, and we've input some new technology and we've made it economic. Or we have to look harder and deeper undercover in areas where people haven't looked or haven't considered before.
Hmm. And again, how do you? So you're suggesting that conveying to the public, the retail investor, that here's a cogent strategy. It fits within our budget. We expect to have a better shot than maybe other people at finding something, because we have the technology, the experience. We see that a lot. The
Yeah.
experience, and then just the physical real estate. You've staked out or have rights to explore certain properties that may have proximity to existing historic mines or operating mines. I see that a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Proximity could be important for sure, but I think fundamentally you have to have the right rocks, you have to have the right science, you have to have that right hypothesis of, hey, this area is good for copper because of a number of reasons, right?
Right. And what would you try to sell to people as a mining operator, or sorry, a mining exploration company?
So
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the big driver in the capital markets, first of all, people need to understand why the capital markets are so important to mining. And that's because you don't walk into a bank and borrow $10 million to go and put a hole in the ground and potentially find nothing. So the capital markets really are the driving force for the mining sector, because people are willing to take that risk. And really, it is a very risky game, and it's not risky necessarily because of the markets. It's risky because you might put 10 million in the ground and find nothing, right? I mean, it really is taking that risk, and that risk is offset by people like James who have this technical expertise and go, look, you know, based on historical data, this is what we know about this area. This is why we think it's a bit of a better bet than somewhere else. But I think the main driving force at the end of the day, besides capital, obviously, and people like James, you know, actually executing these programs, is the storytellers. The driving force for everything is the storytellers. And I think, you know, in the 80s and the 90s, we had brokers out there and you couldn't just go online and see what a stock was trading at every second. You couldn't pull up a press release on you know, your phone. So really the brokers were the storytellers. And, you know, that's kind of the world that I grew up in. And that's why we're doing Mining Over Canada, is it's time to start telling the story and getting people excited about it again. But back to your point, James, of how do you stand out from the crowd? It really is the storytellers. I mean, James Rogers probably tells his story, you know, 30 times a day, right? So, you know, it's, and that's where IR became a big thing, because people had to go out and tell the story. And so I think that's a big part of mining is these amazing storytellers.
You use the word story.
I'm flipping the script, Anna. You said that capital markets is essential to mining. I agree with that, but I'm going to take it one step further and say that mining is essential to capital markets in Canada. Without mining, you do not have a tech boom. Without mining, you do not have, or .com. Without mining, you do not have a cannabis boom. Without mining, you don't have the mining resurgence again.
Totally.
So I think it's a two-sided relationship, and both are equally important. One of them is less understood and less appreciated than the other.
Yeah, and what people neglect to remember a lot of the times is that, yeah, you don't often hold the ore. When you see the ore, it's hard to tangibly understand what that really means, unless it's a really pretty polished piece of gold or whatever. Look, this whole show is only happening because of the resources that have come from the ground, the precious metals used for the wiring, you know, the rare earth metals that are used for the batteries. I mean, these are the things that we rely upon to have our convenient lifestyle. Despite all that's happened the last 6 months, thank you, mining industry, for keeping us alive. Okay, so.
Well, I think that's a big part of the storytelling that we kind of were talking about, is how do you communicate the importance of mining to both investors, and now Barrington had touched on a generational gap, and then how do we actually communicate it to a generational gap in both people involved in the industry, or looking at it as a speculative or an investment standpoint as well. And I think that's where something like Mining Over Canada is a really good approach to bring awareness to what mining industry means, how it works. If I can speak quite topically from my experience in the last lockdown over, let's call it this last 8 months worth of COVID that's affected our lives. All of my classmates from high school, of which I've had many, for the first time ever, people that are millennials that are my age have started asking me questions about how do you invest? How do you get involved in the markets? And I'd say about 50% of my friend group who previously was never interested in investing has actually started picking that up. Now, mining seems to be the last thing that they're interested in. And one thing I've noticed is that people don't understand mining. They're intimidated by it. You know, retail investors that are coming in and they're looking at fundamentals of a company like, hey, this is a great business. It's got good cash flow. It's making money. I'm going to invest in this because I think it's on sale because of COVID. And they've made good returns. Now, how do you look at a mining company and how do you value it? That's a gap that people don't have knowledge on. So I've seen and reviewed a dozen plus companies that friends have sent me saying, well, what do you think about this? And of course, I can't tell them investment advice on it, but I can, speak to the merits of a project or what I think about the management. And everybody's still so intimidated and scared about putting money and cash in, or they're hung up on stories of having been sold snake oil before. So building this foundation of understanding what that mining business is, it's going to be hugely beneficial to the capital markets.
I think you really, you touched on something extremely important, and that's the intimidation factor. And I think what Anna's doing with Mining Over Canada is helping bridge that gap. People can relate. They know, they obviously know the country, and they know their
Mhm.
province, and they know their region. And now, instead of it just being a thing over there, it's a thing here. It's a thing locally. It's a project 2, 3, 4 hours away.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's even in your same. It might be in your same city, and you don't even really know. And it's also the method at which we're choosing to communicate this story as well. Alluding back to Anna's earlier storytelling, we're doing the same thing right now at the CSE. We're telling a story. We're telling our story, and by ours, our issuers, because they make us they make us they make us look good, and we try and make them look good as well. So hopefully we're knocking down that wall and becoming more accessible to both parties, the investors and the companies.
Well said. Now, in our pre-chat, we did discuss some irreverent ideas that we wanted to bring to the front, because this can't all be serious business.
This is
And
true
we're now-
aftermarket.
That's right.
So scared.
No. We have real tough standards here. You can't be in the mining business and not have a few stories to share. So I do know that there's been some goat talk in the prep chat. Can we just jump on that for a minute? Word of the day.
The goats. Well, and Anna actually did point out when she mentioned this goat chat or goat story in the pre-chat that I have multiple goat stories, but I think she was referencing one during.
I said, James, you got to tell the goat story. He goes, which one? I'm like, how does one have multiple goat stories?
I don't see you on a farm,
Okay,
buddy.
I'll try and cram it into like a short little 2-minute story if I can. So, world's falling apart as COVID is coming into Vancouver. Vancouver's going on lockdown. I jump in the truck, big work truck, and head north through moving a trailer, dropping it off in Smithers, and then I've got to go drive around to Fort St. John, and pick up some goats for a friend who has a farm up in the Yukon. And these are two miniature.
This is the most BC story ever.
Goats. Oh, thousands of kilometers. You know, the snow was this deep, and there's no all the things are happening. So I pick up these goats, but the goats are too small to be able to ride in the back of the truck. So of course I have to jump in the cab of my truck.
Why, they'll like bounce around? Like there's gravity's not in
Just-
favor?
Well, they were
Just
in like
lose
this
a bunch
cute little
along the way?
like didn't want to lose them. So I put them in a nice little cardboard box, put a bunch of hay down in the back seat of the truck, and carried on driving up the Alaska Highway. And we're heading to a small cabin we've got up in Southwest Yukon. But we got tired and we needed to stop. And normally I drive all night, but
Sorry, when you say
goats
we,
are-
do you mean you and the
me and
goats?
my girlfriend and
Oh.
the goats. so
Girlfriend, though, because your poor girlfriend is not Canadian.
Oh my God.
No, she's not. And this is like a full Canadian experience. So I've literally got a goat on the dash of the truck. Another one's climbing on the headrest of her seat. And there's hay everywhere. There's goat poop everywhere. It's just a mess. And she's like, well, this is enough. We need to sleep. So we roll into Muncho Lake. There's a small little hotel. And they have a pet policy. And it's
most
minus
fine, establishments that offer nights of sleep.
minus. It's a beautiful lodge, absolutely beautiful place. I highly recommend it. Minus 35 outside, and I'm like, I could keep the truck running and try and keep them warm, but honestly, they have to come inside. How do we do this? So we have a little dog with us as well. So I go into the front counter. And, hi, my name's James. I'd like to, get a room for the night. 2 people, 1 pet. Or I think I just left it vague, and some pets. And he's like, okay, I need the pet's name. So I write down the dog's name and this and that. I'm like, is there a side door that I can get into the hotel with? And he's like, yeah, if you pull your truck around over here, you can move your things. And I got a lot of things I have to move, boxes and stuff.
Things.
He's like, okay, no problem. And so I get out to the truck, load up the goats into this little tiny cardboard box, and bleeding. They all all the way. They're just making all this noise, and I carried them right through the lobby of the hotel into the bedroom, where they proceeded to have a goat party in the hotel room all night long. They would not be quiet.
Oh my
But
God.
eventually the goats were delivered. We got them there. It was an interesting drive.
Did you get to keep one as like payment or some sort of like you bond with one more than the others? And you
Actually, we did. Yeah. They were, well,
course
one of
you
them's
did.
name is Covey, after COVID.
oh nice.
And I'm trying to remember, Gruff is the other one. Gruff was a cute little gaffer. He was a guy who really liked to eat paper, and he ate like most of the stuff I was working on in my briefcase. He's a really nice guy. We bonded.
James, where's your girlfriend from again?
Colombia.
She's
Oh.
from Colombia. And a global pandemic occurs and he gets her in a truck to drive north.
Oh my
Oh.
God.
You should have seen where we stayed. So during this time, I built a 14 by 14 log cabin and full Yukon mode, -40, snowmobiles, hauling everything across the lake. We do a lot of exploration in this area, so kind of setting up a bit of a home base and a number of things. And the lack of having running water for a few months, it was certainly a challenge.
You are so much more manly than I am.
I know.
Like any part of that story, the only thing I could do is sign in to the hotel. You got me beat everywhere.
Like I got a
else.
better microphone than you, but that's it.
You have a much nicer microphone. I think I sent you a picture of the goat in the truck too.
Yeah,
Maybe
we're
you can
we're
link
gonna
above.
we're gonna post that above.
I've learned how to do that. Yeah, we'll put
I
that
love
up.
that goat story. We're gonna have to
Okay.
do part 2 where we hear the other goat stories.
Yeah, and we are gonna have to leave it for a part 2, I think, unless anyone has anything that can top that, because I do
No.
respect that everyone has to go to bed. It's getting late here on Aftermarket. Hardworking people wake up early here. But yeah, any final thoughts, Barrington or Anna, before we say goodnight?
Just on behalf of the Aftermarket, we just want to say thank you, James, and thank you, Anna, for sharing your stories, like all of them, because that's sort of what this show's about, and this is sort of what the exchange is about. A little bit of fun, a little bit of business, and some goats, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. Keep bringing it. Keep going on those adventures, and hopefully, creating some shareholder value in the way, and surviving the pandemic. It's a bit of a list to get through this year. I admit.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
All right. Well, keep safe. You as well, Anna. I know you're doing your best in North Van there. And for everyone watching, if you like this type of content, please hit that like button. It means a lot to us. It means we can keep doing it. Yes, thumbs up. If you want more content like this and you're not subscribed, now's the time. There's a button right below as well. You can subscribe. This was Aftermarket. This was the after-hour session with James and Anna. And Barrington, thanks again for being the best host of this show.
Whoa, where? I'm sorry, I'm still on goats, James.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know what you said the
I'll
last
send you guys a video.
Yeah. If you want that Go video, we'll link it below. And once again, thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
All right.
Thanks.